I pushed twice and Adam was like, the head's coming out. So this nurse is like, oh my gosh, I got to go get the doctors and the delivery team. And I'm just like laying there kind of like, is his head still out or what's going on? Hi. Can you say hello? Say why hello there. I'm Brianna and this is my baby Landon. Say hi. And we are going to tell you our labor and delivery story. Now, Landon is 4 months old, so this did happen 4 months ago, but we just kind of wanted to share this story before it's too far out of my mind because I definitely feel already like some things are getting blurry. I blogged about it shortly after. I'll include the link in the description box if you want to read the actual blog story of Landon's birth story, but wanted to share how labor and delivery went for us. Okay, so first off, I just want to go over what my actual birth plan was. And I feel like I had some friends who told me, make the birth plan, it'll make you feel better, but don't expect to stick to the birth plan. And for the most part, that was pretty true. So my original plan, I wanted to have him completely naturally, no drugs. My game plan was to stay at home as long as humanly possible, go into the hospital and pop him out. And kind of my thought was stay at home as long as possible so that when I get there, it's almost the point of no return where they would tell me you can't have the epidural. So mentally, I'd psyched myself up to do this naturally. I perceived that it was going to be a lot of pain. He's my first baby, so I had no idea what labor was actually going to feel like. But I kept telling myself, like, this is your marathon. Like, this is your mommy marathon, and you're going to be able to do it. And I stayed really physically fit and active throughout the entire pregnancy. So I just kept telling myself, like, your body is still in good shape. Like, you can do this. And at the end of the day, you're going to have this adorable baby you're going to get to hold. And I think my husband was psyched up for that as well. He was ready to coach me through labor, and we took a labor and delivery class where we saw every type of delivery scenario possible. So I think we were definitely prepared for whatever could happen. Obviously, a cesarean is never ideal, but we knew, hey, if that needs to happen so that he comes out healthy and okay, we have to roll with it. So I'll start with then what actually happened. So the weekend ended up having Landon. I had stayed home from work the Thursday and Friday and just worked from home because Wednesday evening I'd had my first what I felt was a true labor contraction. It was so bad. It was not a Braxton Hicks. I fell to my hands and knees. Like I was walking up the stairs when it happened and literally Adam heard me and was like, "Are you okay? What just happened?" Because I got down on my hands and knees and for about a minute just felt like I couldn't breathe. Like my stomach was a weird sensation between like a tightening, almost like if you know like an Indian rug burn, like that's almost like what it felt like in my stomach, and at the same time like a piercing shooting pain. So I was on my hands and knees, took my breath away, and after that didn't have any sort of contraction feeling again. But told my boss about it, and she was like, "Don't come into work, stay home. I bet you it's going to happen soon." And I ended up going into actual labor on Sunday. So Sunday around 5 p.m., we were going to pick up Bob Evans. I'd ordered breakfast for dinner, steak and eggs, one of my favorites. And while we were driving to pick it up, I just said to Adam, I'm like, these contractions aren't Braxton Hicks anymore again. Like, they weren't as bad as the one that put me on my hands and knees, but it was the same at a minuscule scale, sort of a cramping, twisting, and a piercing, shooting pain, like all rolled into one. And the best way I can describe it for moms out there who maybe you're pregnant right now or haven't experienced labor yet, it's sort of like an ocean wave. So I say like you start feeling it and it builds and builds and builds and builds, and then like it crests and all of a sudden like you can feel it diminishing again. So it's like this wave of increasing and then decreasing pain. And then it starts happening over and over and over again and closer and closer and closer together. So my husband had gotten me a birthing ball. My sister had come into town for the weekend thinking it was close to his due date because I went into labor on April 19th, and he ended up being born on his due date, the 20th. So she was over at the house, and between the two of them, I mean, we sat there, we watched Kardashians for a little bit while I bounced on the ball, and I tried to walk around. I kept trying to go up and down the stairs just because I knew if I did stay on my feet or stay on the birthing ball, it would be better for me to continue dilating. Um, and my contractions from 5 o'clock until 11 o'clock at night went from about 5 minutes apart to 2 minutes apart. So I called the hospital, and the doctor had told me, I could almost come to the hospital when they were 5 minutes apart. But she said, if you're 2 minutes apart, get into the hospital. And on the road to the hospital, there was all these potholes because it was April and we'd had a rough winter here in Cleveland. And I would make Adam stop the car because if I had a contraction, because I was having a contraction for anywhere from 45 seconds to a minute in length at that time, I was like, stop, pull the car over. Because if he hit any sort of a bump or pothole while I was having a contraction, it was the most painful thing imaginable. So we got to the emergency room, parked the car, and I started having a contraction right after we'd parked. So my husband went to go get the bags out of the back of the car, and he did not mean to do this, but he hit the unlock, and my elbow, I'd had it like resting on the window ledge. The lock hit my elbow, and I let out a blood-curdling scream. I think people 10 miles away knew I was in labor. And up until that point, I hadn't really been like screaming or acting like anything was so wrong because I was really mentally just trying to stay in this calm Zen state because I was preparing myself for a natural childbirth. So I knew it was just going to get worse and worse and worse until he was out. So we checked in, and I was still 3 centimeters dilated, and I'd been 3 centimeters dilated for 3 weeks since my 37-week doctor's appointment. I was at 3 centimeters. So I walked around for a while dilated. So it was a bit discouraging to know, oh my gosh, I'm 2 minutes apart contraction-wise, and I'm not dilating. So what is going on? And at this point now, I'd gone in labor at 5. It's almost midnight. So for 7 hours, clearly my dilation didn't even change. So the nurses had us walk around for an hour. They checked me again, and still no change. I was at 3 centimeters. So they ended up telling us to go home, which on the walk out, I mean, I was still having a contraction every 2 minutes. So we had to stop about 3 times from the delivery floor to where our car was parked in the parking lot. And I was just holding on to Adam, and I lost it at that point. I started crying. I was like, I don't know what to do unless my water breaks, because at that point my water hadn't broken, to know to come back to the hospital, because I was at that point in such pain, and I'd really just tried to stay so calm up there. I just lost it. So the car ride home, I'm sobbing. He's still pulling over for every contraction. At one point, a truck was like blocking the road. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning at this point. And a truck was blocking the road, and I just lost it. I'm like, we need to get home because what if I just have the baby? And I was a psycho. But Adam, in his defense, was the best coach. I mean, he just kept telling me, breathe, breathe. We're going to get through this. You're going to get to hold a beautiful baby at the end of this. So he was amazing the entire time and listened to everything I said. So we got home, laid in bed, and my contractions just kept getting longer. Like at this point, they were almost lasting 90 seconds. They were still every 2 minutes. And around 3 o'clock in the morning, like when I say crap hit the fan, it hit the fan. I started vomiting. So my pristine, perfect nesting home that I'd had completely ready and immaculate for this baby to come home to, I started throwing up in the bedroom. I had a contraction that was so hard, I'm almost positive that my water must have broken. I just didn't realize it because I was in bed. And, oh, what's wrong? Is this part scary? Because this is where the gross stuff happened. Here, I'm going to put him down and continue. Okay, guys, sorry. So I was laying in bed, and I had such an intense contraction. All of a sudden, like, I felt a little bit of a gush, but to me, it didn't occur to me it was my water breaking, because when my husband and I looked, I'd passed this clot of blood that, I am not kidding, was like a good 6 inches in length. And from the childbirth classes that we'd taken, one of the things they told us about, it's really rare, but placenta previa, and it's where your placenta can come out before the baby, and it's super dangerous. So I looked at my husband, and we were both kind of like, what is this? I don't know. So he put it in a bag and took it to the hospital to show them, to check to make sure from the nurses that we were okay. And that it wasn't placenta previa, but we were so freaked out at that point. We're like, okay, we're getting in the car. We're going back to the hospital. I don't care what they say. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning. So again, my house that was pristine had vomit, blood all over the bedroom, the hallway, the bathroom. It was horrible. So we get back to the hospital, and the calm person that they'd seen 3 hours prior to that was now crying. I mean, I was just a mess in general. And the nurse checked me, and she's like, yep, you're at 7 centimeters. So personally, I think they made a mistake of sending me home, but I mean, I guess you just never know. They also knew it was my first time having a baby, and I know labors for your first child can be really long. Um, but yeah, I'm like, for 3 hours and having to go home and deal with all of this, it was a mess. And it wasn't placenta previa, thank goodness. But at this point, me, who had been all psyched up to do this natural childbirth, my mind and mental state was so out of whack. I looked at Adam and I was like, I'm going to need the epidural. And he's like, babe, whatever you need. Like, I want you to be okay. You're doing wonderful so far, whatever you want. So I got the epidural, and he'd left the room, and to my understanding, he was chugging coffee because he was like, I'm going to have to coach her through labor. And, we hadn't slept at this point. Now it's 4 o'clock in the morning, and the epidural took about like a half hour. He was out of the room for. So he comes back wired, and I was a new person. I mean, he literally was like, you went from nightmare to dream state, because I was then smiling. I was no longer crying and yelling or in any sort of pain. I was high as a kite. It was wonderful. Next baby, I will be asking for the epidural as soon as I can possibly get one. But I mean, literally, like, I touched up my makeup. I was like, oh, this way, when the baby comes out and we take all these pictures and videos, like, I did my makeup, because I looked like a hot mess. And the nurses kind of said to us, well, you guys can get some sleep if you want until, you're 10 centimeters dilated, because you're doing so well now. And poor Adam is like caffeine out the wazoo, can't sleep. So I ended up getting about 3 hours sleep, woke up, and what some of my coworkers told me is like, you'll feel this like big, like heavy feeling in your back, basically. Some people say it feels like you have to go to the bathroom. It didn't feel like that for me. It just felt like I could tell there was pressure in my lower back. And so the nurse checked me, and she's like, yeah, you're 10 centimeters. And again, I think because it was my first time, they sort of assumed, oh, things aren't going to be easy for you. So my husband and my game plan was, when I was actually pushing, he was going to be up by my shoulder and not see what was going on down there. Not that it was a huge deal. Like, if he wanted to see, I would have been fine with it. But I think even he himself was like, if I could just, have the view from up here, that's fine. Well, the nurse told him, like, grab her one leg, and I'm just going to explain to her, like, how to push, and she can do, like, a practice push. So the nurse had one of my legs. He's holding my other leg. They told me how to do it, and I completely attribute this to Pure Barre and, like, me, again, staying in shape during pregnancy and having pretty decent ab muscles prior to pregnancy. I mean, I pushed twice, and Adam was like, the head's coming out. So this nurse is like, oh my gosh, I got to go get the doctors and the delivery team. And I'm just like laying there kind of like, I mean, is his head still out or what's going on? So basically they got the delivery team back in the room, and 4 pushes later, Landon came out. And I am not kidding you when I say this baby, I mean, he didn't have blood on him. He didn't have that white, like, cheesy coating that they say the newborns can have. And Adam and I, in these childbirth classes, they basically told us, like, don't worry if you think your baby's ugly. Like, we'll clean them up and it's fine. And we were like, okay, are we nuts? Is this baby like a movie baby? Because he literally looked perfect. Like, he didn't need a bath. He was just amazing. Like, they laid him on my chest, and I was like, how is he so perfect? And all I remember in that moment, truly, like, after I'd pushed him out and they'd laid him on my chest, and I didn't feel any pain, and I didn't even have to deliver my placenta. It actually just, like, came out with a contraction on its own, like, while he was laying on my chest. And she had to sew me up for a good, like, 30 minutes because I actually did tear in 2 places, I found out afterwards, but at the time felt nothing. I mean, he just cooed, and it was the best day of my life. Like, I'll cry just even thinking about it because he's the most perfect thing I've ever done in my life. I've never been happier. And I just looked at my husband and he was crying too. And we were like, coolest thing, best day ever. How we created this perfect baby together. It's just the coolest experience. So if you're at all on the fence of whether or not you should have a baby, I'm like, have a baby. Because still to this day, I mean, he's the best thing I ever did. And I will never forget that moment, like when he was laid on my chest and it was this, pregnancy is long and your body goes through so much, but seeing all of your hard work come to fruition and just knowing how amazing that like you carried this baby for 9 months and your body created this amazing, perfect baby. It's just mind blowing and it's the coolest thing. And your life is instantly changed. Everything is about that baby. It's hard for me to even think now of what life was like prior to Landon. So that's my labor and delivery story. I feel extremely lucky for the labor that I had. Grand total, he was born at noon the next day, so I was in labor for about 9.5 hours before the epidural. And grand total, I was in labor for about 17 hours. So feel like I had a pretty good delivery with a healthy, beautiful, perfect baby. I couldn't be more blessed. Like, I truly thank God every day for Landon and for this amazing gift he gave to us in our little boy. So for other mommies out there, I love watching your labor and delivery stories. Please leave a comment if you have any questions or anything like that, or want like a follow-up to this or more details on anything, let me know. And again, thanks for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe. And again, if you comment, I'll comment back. Thanks. Hi, YouTube. Thanks for watching my mommy. Say thanks for watching our labor and delivery story. You should have one of me. Oh, and we spit up. Bye, guys.
Let me go. I don't wanna be your hero. I don't wanna be a big man. I just wanna fight with everyone else. You're mad.